That J-Walk, that J-Walk, that
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. My name is Joel. If you don't know me already by now, I want to thank you for joining in. For those of you that are joining us live, I see we've got Jim, Paula, Mason. Thanks for joining us. Jade and Simeon, Tanya. Anyone else that's there, drop your name in the comments. I can see you live today. And if you're watching it on Catch Up, as always, we're still blessed. Thank you so much for joining us. You are now tuned in to Unsubscribe episode 8. So, don't know about you lot, I think it's absolutely flown by. We're pretty much 2 months into this already. We have got a very, very good session lined up for you this week that we're going to get into in a minute. But before we do, anyone that didn't watch last week, the brilliant Jade led an amazing session on God the literal Father. What does it mean to call God our Father? And so if you missed it, we're going to play a quick catch-up video now, just so that you can see what you didn't already catch.
Hello everybody! Good evening! Now tonight's session is going to be about God the Little Father, because not everybody kind of gets it straight away from the scripture or gets it straight away from being told in conversation, but they might get it from song and from lyrics of a song.
Goodness of God, Bethel has me in tears every single time.
Everything stems from our understanding of God as the Father.
I would say he is literally been my father. Literally, there's no doubt about that.
I really struggle with seeing God as being a father. The way my earthly husband provides and like cares and things like that, I feel that I have a better understanding of God in that sense.
It is a struggle for me, and I have experienced it in different ways, but I can't put it into words because I don't know what it's like.
It's like God who has come in as a parent. If you haven't got a mum, he will be there as a mother. If you haven't got a dad, he'll be there as a dad. Like he's there. If you haven't got either, he's still your parent.
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. The way I see fathers is like, they say something, you can't go back to mom and ask to like untie what the dad has said.
And she was saying about God the Father, how important it is to see God as a father as well as a friend, because your father provides for you, your father loves you so much.
How deep the Father's love for us, how vast beyond all measure, that he should give his only son to make a wretch his treasure. Listen to the word, even in the deepest, saddest, worst moments of your life, he's there.
I've been hugged by God so many times, and it's just such a special feeling.
Hugged, held, loved, cherished. And that's the things that he does. Those things are so incredible.
Okay, drum roll please. Yes, for the evening. Drift.
Jason.
Nathaniel. Thanks for joining me. So I'm joined tonight by my very good friend Nathaniel. We're going to get into the subject in a minute, but firstly, Nathaniel, how you doing? For the people that don't know you out there, tell us a bit about yourself. How you doing? What's new?
Wow, yeah, what's new? Boy, I've got 2 sons now.
2. I think people just know about 1.
Yeah, so my first son, Jeremiah, is 16 years old, and my wife gave birth to our second son, Isaiah James, who is 2 months as of Monday that's gone. So we found out about Isaiah James. We was at Jade's wedding in Jamaica in January, and that's when we found out that we were having baby number 2. So yeah, man, just been busy working, raising 2 sons, and
wow.
Thank God,
So you're going to be avoiding weddings for the foreseeable future for a little while.
Well, I'm going to be flocking to weddings because I miss the socialising. So
it's true, man. It's true. I'm happy. If you haven't noticed already, we're just happy to be here.
Yeah, literally.
Linking up. But the subject last week, I think Jade and the girls killed it. And I think it's a very important subject, God, the literal Father. And it was so interesting, I think, to get that from an all-female perspective.
Yeah, definitely.
How it is to be a father. But how is it, real quick for you? Like, how would you say the concept of God being a father is? Is that something you relate to easily? Is it something that's a bit tricky?
If I'm honest, it's an interesting one, really. I think for God being a father, I've always, seen God as someone who I confide in, someone I talk to, when I need help and I need advice. Quite normally what I do with my own dad. So to get a female perspective on it was definitely interesting, and I was looking forward to seeing the male perspective. And then obviously you invited me on the show, so yeah.
So now it's kind of fitting, really, that the subject we're going to talk about today is titled "To Be a Man," and so we're going to be discussing what it is to be a man, basically, and obviously being a father for the most part is linked to men, generally speaking, and I think something I found almost like sad, but at least it was still something to think on, is a lot of the girls last week were saying about how there's a difference between their relationship with God as their father and their earthly father, whether it's because he's not around or distant or whatever. And so I think it kind of leads into this subject, and I'm not bashing dads or anything like that, don't worry, but what it means to be a man. And so that's what we're going to be discussing today. We've got a lot to sort of cover and a lot to get through. And what I just want to maybe pre-warn you is, obviously we will try and stick to time, but particularly for this subject, there's so much to unpack. So firstly, I'm not thinking that we're going to cover everything in one episode, but what we do cover, I do want to make sure that we try our best to just get through it properly. So whether we go over, do you know what, this is the benefit of being online, that if you got to take a break, if you've got to pause for whatever reason, you can always come back to it at another point. But I don't want to rush through what we're going to talk about, because there's a lot of good guests that we've sort of been able to interact with throughout the week, and I think we're going to have some good discussions ourselves. So to kick start, I want to just get straight into it biblically to set the framework, what it means to be a man. And when I was kind of trying to do the research and search for biblically what does God say being a man is, I was actually surprised to see that for the most part there's not too much directly that speaks about being a man. And it's not to say that there's nothing about how to be a man, but for example in Proverbs there's a whole chapter dedicated to how to be a woman, like a woman of God. There's parts in the Bible that are dedicated to how to be a good husband, but not every man is going to be a husband. How to be a good father, maybe not every man is going to be a father. So what does it mean to be a man in general? There are a few verses that I picked out that I think do sort of speak to this concept. And Nathaniel, if I could get you to read some of them out. So first one, 1 Corinthians chapter 16 verses 13 to 14.
Yes, great. So I'm reading from the New King James Version. So watch, stand fast in the faith, be brave, be strong, let all that you do be done with love.
Amen. And then Titus chapter 2 verse 7.
In all things showing yourself to be a pattern of good works, in doctrine showing integrity, reverence, incorruptibility.
And then we're back to 1 Corinthians, but chapter 13 this time, verse 11.
Yeah, this is one of my favourites actually. So when I was a child, I spoke as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things.
Put away childish things. Put away the Xbox. Put away the... No, I'm joking.
But the Xbox is still there. I'm actually thinking about getting the new one. But I don't think I'll have time to play it. But anyway, yeah.
And then the final one, Proverbs chapter 27, verse 17.
Another one of my favourite ones that I use with Joel. As iron sharpens iron, so man sharpens the countenance of his friend.
Yeah, and you're right. We say this to each other a lot,
that's
don't
it,
we?
that's it.
And I think, to be honest, that's a verse that I love as well, because we were even saying earlier the setup. So at the minute, it's just me and Nathaniel in the studio, social distancing, lockdown rules. But Ian did help set up the tech before, and we were saying, do you know what? Before the session, as we prayed, we were saying, do you know what? Just 3 men together praying.
Yeah, trust me.
Missed it. We haven't done this for a while.
That's it.
You try and do it on Zoom and phone, it's not the same. But
yeah,
I think the power of men to pray together, to sharpen each other, to build each other up, is powerful. But let me not get ahead of myself.
That's the whole sermon.
We're going to get into that. But yeah, as you can see, there's some verses out there that I think do speak to what it is to be a man. Ultimately, how the Bible tells us to just be as human beings, of course, that also feeds into what it is to be a man. But that, like I say, can apply to everyone. But what I want to look at is specifically how, as men, we can develop and know that we're going down the right path. And I want to focus on two particular men from the Bible for this section. And those men are the man of Adam and the man of Jesus. And ultimately, when you read about them and you look into their lives, I think that they're very different. They have very different approaches to their calling, to their life. And ultimately, by how they live, there's two very different consequences that impact not just them, not just even their immediate family, but all of humanity. So the two very significant men in the Bible, and there's a preach that you may have heard me mention a few times before in the past, and I watched it a few years back, and it really impacted me. It definitely sort of changed how I viewed what a man was. It kind of influenced me of how I want to be building my life, how I want to be a husband, when I met my wife and all sorts. And it's by a rapper named Lecrae, and I'm going to put an image up of the screen because if you've not seen this preach or watched this preach, I highly recommend. It's on YouTube. Search it up and watch it. It's 40 minutes long, and particularly for the men out there, I think it will really change the game for you. So cool. I didn't speak because I'm not sure if the mic was muting there, but that's the preach. You can either, if you didn't catch it, you can go back and pause it on that bit, or if you've got my number or whatever, just shout me and I can send you the link. And this preach, ultimately, he's talking about what it is to be a man, and he compares Jesus and Adam. And the ultimate sort of comparison I believe that you see when you really look into their lives is how Adam almost showed signs of weakness and ultimately things I would say are wrong. You can kind of see now how it was kind of wrong what he did. Jesus, on the other hand, showed a lot of strength and ultimately did what right, which is interesting because I think particularly in the world, a lot of times I think what we get thrown back at us as Christians is Jesus, this kind of weak, kind of sissified person that you follow, Mr. Turn the Other Cheek, like that's not even a real man. And I'll be honest with you, when I became a Christian, I did think, do you know what, do I have to kind of be less of a man now because these things aren't what I at the time thought to be manly. I don't know if you've had similar thoughts in the past yourself or... Yeah,
it's been, you often hear a lot of people take that verse out of context, you know. One time someone said to me, you're a Christian, so if I hate you, you're going to turn the other cheek. And I won't say what scripture I quoted back. But yeah, I think we do have this misconception of, you know, how we see Jesus in the Bible. And Jesus was the ultimate example of a man. He showed self-control. He showed restraint, integrity, all things which now in this day and age is hard to find in a man. You know, so yeah, I think. In the Bible, or in the Gospel of Mark, Luke, John, you can see the 4 different characteristics of Jesus in that, but that's a different subject in itself.
It's another preach. We've got like a whole list of preachers lined up, but it's very true, and I think ultimately exactly what you're sharing. There's certain characteristics of Jesus that some of them, when you deep it, you're thinking, actually, yeah, that is what makes a man. And some of the others, I realise, they stand the test of time. There's a lot that ultimately we can think is what makes a man. And then over time, I don't know about you, but we're going to get into this a bit later, but real quick, when I was younger, I would sort of look at certain men and think, yeah, that's a guy. And then as you get older, and then these guys are now older and still doing the same things, you suddenly look at them and you're thinking, oh, what? Wait, that's not cool anymore. I don't rate that. Whereas Jesus I think he embodies a lot of characteristics that maybe at the beginning you think, nah, I don't want to be like that. But in the long run, you see actually, that takes a real man to live the way he lived. And to kind of put some of this into context, and we don't have time to read out all the verses and everything, but as I always say, I encourage everyone to do the research. Don't just take my word for it. Don't take Nathaniel's word. Read the book yourself. Genesis chapter 3 is, I think, where we really start to see Adam show the weakness of man. And Christian or non-Christian, most people are going to know the Garden of Eden story and the fact that there was a fruit that was not meant to be eaten. Eve ate the fruit,
Whose fault was
and
it?
the rest is a sinful history. But what I find very, very interesting about that point is it's easy to sort of say, oh yeah, because of what Eve done, we're messed up. But ultimately, God gave the responsibility of the commandments to Adam. He gave it to the man to be responsible and to sort of take care of this garden, take care of his lady, take care of everything. And once the fruit's been eaten by Eve, Genesis chapter 3, you see that God called the man. He didn't go searching for Eve. Now, God is all powerful, all knowing. He knew who ate the fruit. He could have easily gone straight to Eve and said, why did you do that? But he went to the man because this sort of act against God had happened. And I find that very intriguing. And when you go to verse 12, I'm going to summarize it. You see that Adam blames everyone but himself. He says, and to paraphrase, the woman you gave me ate the fruit. The woman you gave me ate the fruit. And I love that verse in terms of learning how not to be a man, because there's two parts of that. Firstly, the woman ate the fruit. So he's already saying, it weren't me. I didn't eat the fruit. Come on. It's her. You should know this, God. But then there's an extra bit where he says, the woman you gave me ate the fruit. So now it's God's problem as well. And it's ultimately everyone's fault, but not Adam. And it's almost like he's covering himself. Like, the woman you gave me ate the fruit. And if you're not going to blame the woman, remember that you gave her to me. So you two saw this out, but it's not my fault. And I think that alone just summarizes what I think is our weakness a lot of times as men. This not wanting to own up to stuff or take responsibility or find the quick way out of situations. And we contrast that with the character of Jesus. And again, I found this interesting. I had to do a quick little fact check with Ian before because I wanted this garden bit to be relevant. But the fall happened in the Garden of Eden, but then I think where you see a real man is in the Garden of Gethsemane. So
Preach.
come on. Jesus is in the garden. This is just before he's about to be arrested and led to his torture and his death. And again, this is so deep because I'm not looking to scare any kids, but if you really read what Jesus went through, it's horrific. I know when I was a child, and you obviously know the story of Jesus, God forgive me, but I remember thinking, it's not even that deep, like how he went. Like, it's bad that he got killed, but he always looked peaceful on the cross, just like.
It's chilling.
But when you actually read what he went through, it's horrific, and Jesus knew everything that was about to happen to him. So he must have been petrified. He was petrified, and he says that he's pleading to God. And you were saying before the setup, like there was blood,
Yeah, he was
like,
sweating blood.
sweating blood. He was so scared and stressed about what was happening, and he basically pleads to God, take this cup away from me, take this away from me if you can. I don't want to do it anymore. Because remember, as much as Jesus was God, he was man as well. That's how, despite how we may feel in this earth, we can relate to Jesus because he knows what it's like to be a man. But the bit that I think makes him a real man is that despite all that, he said, not my will be done, but your will, God. Despite any of this fear that he had. Now, he, in that situation, knowing all the horrific things that he was going to go through, said, take this from me, God, but if it's not your will, okay, so be it. Adam, who was going to get in trouble because he let his wife eat the fruit, already was shifting the blame and ducking and diving, and you see the difference. Like, in such a crazy situation, arguably potentially much more scary, Jesus still stepped up and did what was right. And Romans chapter 5, I think, if you really want to nail into the character of Jesus, no pun intended, and really find out what he's about and what a real man is about, we can start with, and I'm going to grab it now, providing my phone loads up properly.
Was it Romans what?
Romans chapter 5, verses 7 to 10, if you got that.
Google that, film me now. Yeah, I've got the NIV.
Yeah, if you could just read that out, please.
7 to 10, yeah?
Yeah.
Very rarely will anyone die for a righteous person, though for a good person, someone might possibly dare to die. But God demonstrates his own love for us in this. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Since we have now been justified by his blood, how much more shall we be saved from God's wrath through him? For if, while we were God's enemies, we were reconciled to him through the death of his Son, how much more, having been reconciled, shall we be saved through his life?
Cool. So it says that basically a man, how rare is it that someone would die for someone that's righteous, let alone for unrighteous people. But that's what Jesus did. He was willing to step up and go way beyond what most people would see as their remit of responsibility. And ultimately, to compare, I'm going to finish on this, the two key differences between Jesus and Adam, if you don't mind, it's still in Romans 5, but verse 17 to 19.
For if by the trespass of the one man death reigns through that one man, how much more will those who receive God's abundant provision of grace and of the gift of righteousness reign in life through the one man, Jesus Christ?
Yeah. So through one man, you can see that all of humanity was impacted, and ultimately that was the fall of mankind. For all the nastiness, the horrible things in this world, it ultimately came through one man messing up. And let me be clear for the guys out there, don't use that as an excuse to put all your blames on Adam, because you're ultimately being Adam with that mindset. Jesus, through him, all mankind has redemption, has salvation, has a way out of this madness that we call life. And that's what we can use as our example. We're never going to be Jesus Christ. I'm not obviously preaching any blasphemy like that. But we can take our model from him in terms of how we're going to live our life, how we are going to know that, do you know what, just by doing the right thing, the hard thing, but the right thing, the impact you can have not just on yourself, maybe not even just on your family and close circle, but potentially so many people out there. And if every man out there had the same mindset, I think this world would be a much better place. So I'm going to finish it there for the sort of framing it in a biblical concept. I'm glad I pre-warned you already, because I think this is going to be a bit of a longer session, but I think it's good that we're getting into it the way we are. And earlier this week, I had the privilege of talking to another friend of ours, Eddie. And for anyone out there that doesn't know Eddie, Eddie is the husband of Jade, who you've probably seen on Unsubscribe. And man, I'm going to play the conversation for you in a minute, but Eddie was dropping gems, gems upon gems upon gems. And I've seen the conversation played back multiple times. I was editing the video, so I kept rewatching it, and every time I rewatched it, I was picking up something new from what he was saying. So, guys and girls that are watching out there, pay attention to what this man is saying. He speaks with a lot of wisdom, and the benefit of this going online is anything you miss, make sure you go back. I would recommend rewatch this at least 3 times, because you're probably going to miss bits that he goes over. So I'm going to play that now. It's a long-ish conversation, but like I say, there's a lot to be gained from this and to learn from this. And then after I've played it, we'll come back to the studio and we'll have a little chat about it, and then have more of a sort of dialogue amongst ourselves about some other questions. But yeah, so I guess like to kickstart it, my main question, obviously with everything that happened this year, like almost straight after getting married and moving, you've got the situation with your wife's health, and you're balancing it with issues at work and stuff like that. So what was that like to deal with as a husband? How did you find that experience?
As they always say, there isn't a manual when you get married, you know. There is no book on marriage. Becoming a husband was the most exciting thing, but at the same time, it became very daunting. Knowing someone for however long, if it's a year, if it's months, if it's a couple years, I was strong enough, but I think when my wife became ill is when it became real, because it was trying to stay strong for myself, stay strong for my son, stay strong for her, stay strong for her mum. Then obviously not wanting to discuss any form of what was going on in my head to anybody else because I didn't know who to talk to. And as a guy, for us guys, we see it as a thing of, well, for me personally, I've always seen it as a part of why am I discussing my stuff with every Tom, Dick, and Harry, or why am I speaking to this person about my life? Like, I'm not talking to you. But it's even worse for you to suffer in silence without having outlet to actually speak to somebody. So I think coming into it, I was more worried, like, right, God, you've just given us the opportunity to actually get married this year, and then she's fallen this sick. And we were even discussing it yesterday. I was like, I didn't know the extent of how ill you were until you actually went in. And I spoke to the doctor, and the doctor was just like, yo, this is what it is. Like, we've tested her. It's pneumonia type 2. Blood clots are found in the lungs. Liquid is found in both lungs. What? This is someone that we were cracking jokes prior to the week of her falling exceptionally ill. Obviously, she had this random flu thing, which I thought was from the holiday because of change of climate coming from somewhere so hot. And it was a real eye opener because I took time out to kind of recover her to be better, but that's when it fully hit the fan of, okay, your wife is ill, what are you going to do? And regarding to work, it was already tough. I took time out from work to get married, to come back to work, to kind of start relearning particular things that they had taught whilst I was away. But the friction of work and the friction of being a newly married man and the friction of trying to be the Superman holding everything together, yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot. I know I've recovered well, but it was definitely something that no matter how strong you are mentally and physically, it does take a toll if you're not careful. And that's one of the things where I was kind of grateful to have, obviously, my boys, aka yourself, Nats, and even my boy Bobby as well. Like, you man really grinded me very well. And I will give a last shout out to the main guy, Adrian, who I call Big Bro. Like, you guys held me very close because it was like a shock to everybody. You're like, what? Are you being serious? And it was only when it was kind of shared that she went to hospital is when people finally hit, like, right, it's actually that serious. And I know most people were very like, oh, Eddie, why didn't you tell me? What am I going to tell you for? That's not something I want to discuss. That's not something I want to discuss. Like, I'm there trying to keep my son happy to make sure that he's okay. Like, mom's gonna be okay, bro. We're in this together. Like, no one's. We didn't start the race for one person to end the race, and it's just me and you. No way. We're a team. So I think that's when the whole London mentality, South London mentality came in, and I just thought, you know what, I'm gonna have to grind it out and just be that soldier, be that one man soldier. But at the same time, I was grateful to have her mum by my side. Her words of encouragement definitely gave in, and having my pastor and particular people pray as well. It got me into being a lot more closer with God, you know. You never understand a particular situation until it finally is like right in front of you. And God literally sat me down during that time and was just like, okay, everything is cool, but I think this is the time where me and you need to sit down because you keep on having this thing of I can orchestrate Mr. Perfection. I'm here to help you. Like, if you don't tell me, how am I supposed to help you? And that's one of the things that I'm still working on as a man, trying to not take over and actually allow God to do what he needs to do. So yeah, man,
that's a really interesting point because I think you're not alone. I think the majority of us men and particularly as believers, we've got this relationship with God. I think that's probably one of our biggest struggles is not wanting to be Superman. Or what does it mean to sort of let God take charge? How would you how did you find that situation, or what did you learn through this experience about your relationship with God and how to do it different?
Don't be afraid to talk. Whenever we have like study sessions or a little Bible worship, myself, Jade, Michael, and it's just a one-on-one, I realized that studying isn't the problem. When it comes to praying, that's when I have the small voice and the wife has the big voice. And Michael's just the innocence of a child. He's just praying the way he knows how to pray. And during that time, I can definitely say that the first day of her getting taken away by the ambulance and not being able to follow her to hospital, like, I hadn't broke down prior to this. I hadn't broke down at all, but I literally went into the closet and I cried. I was like, God, I know you're real, but this one, yeah, I feel vulnerable. I feel very, very vulnerable. How we gonna do this kind of thing? And slowly but surely, as I was like praying and this having that to myself and the Holy Spirit and God, I was just like, okay, I get it now. So it's been a gradual process, and I feel like I'm even a lot better because now I find it a lot more easier. When I want something, it's one thing thinking it, it's one thing saying it, but actually meeting your half. So like, if God says, okay, I'm gonna help you, where are you gonna meet him? Are you gonna not do anything? It's like, remember, I think we spoke about this last time of like the whole talent thing of the one that had a talent and hid it, the one that didn't do anything, and the one that had a talent and doubled the talent kind of thing. I don't want to be the person that's gonna be it's wrapped up after on the D day. I bring it out, but I could have done so much with it, kind of thing. So me personally, I'm enjoying my relationship. It's just I do have my occasional random moments as a man where if it's not the overwhelming, it's just like I become very critical. And you know, you can think like 1,001 things where you think everything is okay, but sometimes it really isn't. And it could be the smallest thing that you think is okay, and that's the smallest thing that you need to correct. And the same will apply. So yeah, man, it's something I'm learning on a daily basis.
And what do you think's like what's the best way to word it? What do you think's the most dangerous or unhelpful mindset that as men we tend to have in crisis situations?
I feel like I'm giving up all the men. Like I'm throwing all the men into the deep end. Me saying this, but when we say everything's gonna be all right, and lo and behold, 2 2s, it's just like, see, you've lost, so you already know what I'm saying. Everything's gonna be all right, but bro, you don't even know what's gonna happen in the next couple of minutes, let alone to the end of the week, and you're saying it, but the worst thing is for you to say it and not actually put it to action. I think that's one of the most dangerous things, and I've seen it with particular people. Be a man of your word. Don't say something and not actually roll with it and actually finish it through, because I feel like that can put you in a very, very sticky situation, especially when you're the head of the house and the vision is, okay, we're following one way, this is the vision, this is where we're going, but you yourself ain't connected. Do you know where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
You're not in tune. The Holy Spirit's telling you to go this way, but you're still. I don't believe in autonomous driving. I'm gonna drive myself. Lo and behold, autonomous driving is only there to assist you. but you've taken a whole totally different route. Yeah, that's when it becomes a bit sticky, man.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you kind of touched on it. Like my next question was going to be, what do you think are the best qualities that we have as men that help us deal with situations, and particularly like speaking from the point of view as a husband or a father or someone in a position where people depend on us. What are some of the qualities that you think as men we can show that really benefit people in those situations?
Firstly, I'll definitely say we are leaders. By grace, we are leaders. Your personality, let alone your whole countenance of how you carry yourself, that's always seen when you're outside. You may not think of it as anything, but a person can see you and be like, oh, raw, this person is very, like, he knows how to carry himself. He's very, very articulate. And I would definitely say, I'm trying to, being a man of your word, like myself, always want to encourage, always want to listen. If I can give advice, I'll give advice. If I can assist, I will assist. What else again? I'm trying to just try and cram that in. There's so many points one can pick, but it's trying to see. I'm doing it now. I'm trying to be Mr. Perfect. I'm trying to put it in order. But yeah, it's just I can't even pinpoint the one I want to start from and then work my way down. But I think just having the drive definitely. Knowing what you want and how to get to where you need to be is definitely a thumbs up, because with that can be the drive for everybody within the family unit, and everybody will know that, okay, this is where we're going today. Cool. Let's for example, I always say I'm the pilot of the mega ship, but I still have my co-pilot here, and I still have AKA my son, and all of us that are understanding the dynamics of what we're riding on the water right now. So we're all pushing this thing together. So we know, okay, from here to Calais is going to be about an hour. They've told us not to go through this particular route, so I just need you to look out occasionally if you see the waters becoming a bit silent or a bit choppy, and I'm gonna just keep on going. So when I see Calais ahead of us, I know we're there. And at least if I want to relax for a bit, I've got my co-pilot to take over. So that whole unit of all three of us coming together does actually work. And I think just being you, having that big personality of just, it's all here. It all starts from there. Like if you know who you are, then everything else comes with it.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And my final question then, Eddie, is, and it might be linked to some of your points, but we're young men. We're not claiming to know all the answers, and I'm sure maybe as men we never will. But that being said, what would be your advice for any men that are watching this that particularly are going through tough times, and maybe even more so know that they've got people that depend on them and look up to them, and just want to really do well with this situation for their loved ones? What would be your advice of the best way for them to carry themselves?
First and foremost, brothers, we need to come together. We need to come together. I know as a man, we do find it hard to talk to another man, because occasionally it could be a thing of we're competitive, we're looking at the next person. Oh, right, they've got that. It's a natural part of us, no diggity, no doubt. But for example, this whole COVID thing, it is shown that being a guy that has a good foundation motivation will definitely keep you in the longevity. And I've seen a lot of guys kind of fall on the rocky road because coming from a fast-paced life, for example, of knowing A to B, bang, 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 and then all of a sudden it just kind of comes to a halt. They don't know what to do with themselves. Yeah, definitely. That I think having a brotherhood, man, of just literally coming together and just literally sitting down, where as men we can all discuss, like, okay, this is how I'm feeling. As I said at the beginning, like marriage has no manual. Like you learn something every day. You wake up with something. You think you knew the person that you knew in January, and you're learning something in November, second week kind of thing. So altogether, I'll definitely say, don't be too shy to speak to your spouse. Like your spouse is literally your lifetime partner. I know it may be hard to kind of open up, but communication goes so far. And I believe if you need a bit of encouragement, if it's not from your brother, then check out your circle. I always say your circle is normally a handful. I won't say 10, but I'll say maybe like there could be like 5 people. As I did in my time, it was yourself, it was Nat, it was Adrian, and my mom and Bob's. Like you guys held me down. You held me down, and at the time, it wasn't like I was withering, but I was a bit like I'm really flustered. I'm going into I need to make sure that there's food. I need to make sure that bills are paid. I need to make sure that we have money in the central reserve. And going into overdrive, I would then break myself out where I don't get to see anybody. And that was another thing where it would now become, for example, my son would have like a sports day. I wouldn't be able to go. Or he would want to go to the park and play. I'm out cold tired because I've worked more than 50 hours plus in the week. You get what I'm saying? So stuff like that. Definitely having an outlet of being able to speak and definitely trying to utilize that to the biggest and the highest point. And obviously, if you have like obviously from brothers from church, if you have the easy access of your pastor, of your leadership, if you can just literally just send a message. If you can't make a phone call, send a message. Yo, hey, this is what's going on today. I just wanted to just, commit into God's hands. Can you assist me on how to? And yeah, from there, it's like you start on one, and then it becomes a process, and then from there, you hopefully do get the result that you want.
No, definitely, Eddie. So much wisdom, man. A lot of wisdom in that chat, and I think
I'm still learning. I'm still learning, mate.
No, I think it's really good just to have these conversations, like you're saying, and I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day just to share this with us, because I think this is gonna be a real blessing for a lot of people out there, and at the very least, just to see that, do you know what, as guys, we don't claim to have all the answers, but we're trying to be better men, not just for ourselves, but for the people that depend on us. And like you say, I think having these conversations, that's where it starts. So yeah, I really appreciate it, man. I just want to say thank you. I think there's a lot.
Definitely. Thank you for having me. That's the key thing. Obviously, I know there's a lot more we could share, and obviously due to the whole lockdown now, it would have even been nice to have like maybe like a 5-man band and just hear different people's perspectives on how they see their marriage, let alone their walk of where they've come from to where they are and what they know. At the end of the day, you can be sat next to somebody that your experience could be their breakthrough, or it could be their motivation of rah, this person actually went through this and came out. Okay, I don't have an excuse. Like I need to start pushing now. And if that person can help you, you can't say no.
Yeah, no, definitely.
That's me personally. You can't say no. So
Yeah, I agree, and I think we'll do it. We'll do it once we know that we can meet up properly and do it. There's definitely, I think, gonna have to be at least a part 2 to this discussion because, yeah, we need to keep building.
I'm down.
These foundations.
I'm down.
Eddie.
Eddie.
Wisdom. We were just watching the comments fly by as we were watching that. Eddie, you spoke wisdom into the people. And I told you it was going to be a good one. And I'll guarantee you probably missed stuff that he said.
Yeah.
So at some point, once this is all done, go back, rewatch it, and yeah, let us know in the comments actually now. What was it that you sort of picked up? Is there any bits that Eddie sort of mentioned, any gems that Eddie dropped that really spoke to you? I'm gonna put that question to you now, Nathaniel. Anything that Eddie put down there that you really
the thing he said about, as men, when we say, everything's fine, everything's gonna be alright.
Yep.
I know I've said that loads of times to my wife, and my wife catches onto it straight away. She's like, Nathaniel, tell yourself that. I know things are gonna be fine. She's like, tell yourself that, and that's what I'm doing. I'm really encouraging myself, thinking, oh God, how am I gonna do this? So 100% I can relate to what you're saying, man. I think, as men, well, it's part of the questions later, so I'll save some of the responses, but 100%.
Yeah, very good. And I've seen we're getting some comments. Can we get a part 2? I think definitely we would love to have a part 2. And it's a shame we had lockdown because Eddie was meant to be here with us in the studio, but we obviously can't overcrowd things. Hence why I did the Zoom chat. And when we did the chat, I was saying to Eddie, look, you don't worry about the timing, but just as a heads up, I'll probably try and keep the video to around 10 minutes. And as he was speaking, I was thinking, I just want to keep hearing more. And I thought, I'll edit it after and cut it down. And then I thought, you know what? There's nothing I can cut out of that video. There's nothing that I can say, that weren't too relevant to the subject. So, yeah, Eddie, really appreciate that conversation. I know even for ourselves in the studio, there's a lot that I think is very wise in there, and definitely judging by the comments, there's a lot of amazing things. Paula, something that jumped out for Paula being men of your word, that faithfulness, that's something that women really appreciate. So again, for all you single guys out there, take notes. The ladies are preaching to you what they want in a man. You can learn from this. And one thing, I guess, being a man of your word. Great video, and we're gonna now switch from Eddie to another great solid man, Nathaniel, aka Drift. Now I just want to have like a sort of discussion about a few things. Sure. So we've sort of gone through a couple of questions, and I just would be interested to get your perspective on a couple of things. I'll share my perspective as well, so it doesn't have to just be you on the spot all the time. But first question I want to ask, and I think this is a question we probably don't get asked a lot as men, is when did you become a man?
Yeah, that's a great question. What's the answer? I think for me, there's no, defining moment when I thought to myself, I'm a man now. When I was thinking about that question, it was something I was pondering upon. And I think it's something that happened over time. Really, it didn't just happen like, oh, I'm a man. I think it was a gradual thing. I think there was a lot of events which where I had to grow, where I had to put away childish things as such. Not my Xbox, but put away childish things and just become a man. I think that's still a process today. You're always growing, hopefully, you should always be learning. I don't know if I answered the question.
No, definitely.
It's a gradual thing.
I think, again, the key thing that you're saying, which I would imagine is probably the same for a lot of guys out there, and please let us know your answers in the comments, is it's not always obvious. When you became a man, I think you get to a point in your life where you think, I'm a man now, I think. Again, I would say similar for me, it would happen in stages. And like you were saying, I think life situations can make you sort of have to become a man. Sometimes good, sometimes bad, but Romans 28, all things work to good for those that love the Lord their God.
That's it.
Another favourite scripture of
My
yours.
favourite verse.
So I think even in encouragement for the guys out there that have maybe felt they had to become a man too early, God can use it for great things. And I would say for myself, when I first became a man, was maybe one of those things. I kind of think I started to become a man maybe too early. And again, I just want to put it out there. This is no disrespect on my own father or anything like that. Being him a cool, and this is not knocking him, but it would be sort of unfair of me to just miss out a part of my history that I think helped me to become a man. And my dad sort of left home when I was 13, and I'd say from that minute, that's when I started to realise, I've got to become a man. And I would say the big thing I noticed was when he left, and I think this is a quality that men also have. When he left, I felt like the security in my house left, and the stability in my house left. And I remember, I mean, maybe it's a bad thing, but when I knew he was leaving, I didn't care that much. I wasn't actually emotional because so many people I knew didn't live with their dads anyway. That wasn't an issue I had. But it was weird. Like the first night, I remember that you weren't there. It just suddenly clicked in my head, and I thought, snap.
He's not coming back.
And who's going to take care of the house? And I have chats with my mum about this and stuff like that. Like, I'd started to suddenly think, I've got to take care of everyone. And I'm the eldest of 5, so I used to think my younger brothers and sisters, what if someone breaks in? And my mum would have obviously done all she could, but as a even 13-year-old, you think, well, I'm already stronger and bigger than my mum, so what's she going to do? So I used to I was paranoid. I used to know the escape routes in the house, and I used to create scenarios like, this person comes in here, this is how I get them out of the house. And it was so bad that I used to have even weapons I knew around the house, not guns or madness like that, but things that I used to think, if someone comes in, I'll try and fight them off. And I think that's it, of course, not a healthy mindset to have from.
Well, you're 13. So.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? From young, but I think something that it kind of taught me from early was, my life is not just my own. I have a responsibility for other people, and being a Christian, I had to learn to sort of undo some of that and learn how to trust God, and not just. Because the negative that comes from that is, I think, as then men, when we go through crazy situations, we just want to depend on ourselves.
Become self-reliant. And I think that's why you and I have always gotten on, because we're so similar. We're both the eldest in our families. Well, I've got a twin sister who's older than me by 10 minutes, but because I am the man, I see myself as the eldest. Both our parents are split up. So my father left when I was 17, 18, and we have a great relationship now. But at the time, similar to you, I remember I had my uncles calling me up saying, Nathaniel, you're the man in the house now, and you got to step up, you got to do this. And in my head, I was thinking, what does that even mean? Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
And then I think, when it dawned on me that, we went through quite a rough time. We had bailiffs knocking on the door, and then he got kicked out of the house. So there was definitely tough, and I think.
And you're taking that on your shoulders, because you're thinking that's down to you.
You think it's your responsibility.
Yeah.
So I remember, going to Asda, putting food on the table, taking my brother here, taking mum there, and just doing what you think you should be doing at that young age. And it is what it is.
Definitely. And again, this ain't not to knock fathers, or definitely not to knock my dad. Me and my dad are cool, and I'll say he's a legend. But there's a way, I think, as men predominantly, we offer security to our loved ones without even realising. There's a funny story that I have. When I was a kid and my parents were together at this time, and we was at some party. How my memory is anyways, is that I remember this guy being drunk and kicking off, and it probably weren't even that deep if I saw it now, but as a kid, that was the first time I saw someone get drunk and get angry, and I was scared, I was petrified. And I remember saying to my mum, I'm scared, or she knew I was scared. And then all she said is, Joe, your dad's here, and look at your dad. And look at him. My dad's he's 6'2", big built guy. And I remember when she said that, I thought, and she said, if this guy tries to do anything, your dad will break him. And I remember just thinking, he can't touch me. Nothing can touch me because my dad's around. And I think as men, we often don't even realise that for people that look up to us, we offer that security to them. And again, that's a real blessing if we know that, and if we know like what we can offer to create stable situations. I think it really helps people.
Sure.
What would you say makes a man of God? So we're talking about like generally what makes a man, but as Christian men, what do you think makes a godly man or a man of God?
Yeah, I've got to look at my notes for that. But yeah, I would say, after that question, you have to look at the ultimate man. And the ultimate man was Jesus Christ. So we need to look at his attributes, his qualities, and the example he set for us. So I've got, one of my favourite scriptures here is, I think, but first of all, before I go to that, a man is someone who makes room and makes time to study the Word of God. It says, your word is a lamp unto my feet. Also says, men study and meditate on this word day and night, so that will not depart from you. And I feel like a man of God needs to be a man after God's own heart, just like how King David was, especially as men, as we are meant to be the foundation of our family home. We need to be seeking him first, So one of my favourite scriptures is to seek ye first the kingdom of heaven and all its righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. So I think that's the first thing. We need to be continuously making room, making an effort to seek him. Second of all, for me personally, I think a man of God is someone who intentionally provides for their family. So Proverbs 13:22 says, a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. And 1 Timothy 5:8 says, but if anyone does not provide for his own, and especially for those of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. So for me personally, looking at those scriptures and having a young family myself, I think not having responsibility, and that's why I find it interesting when you see, and not knocking anyone who's done this, but when you do see broken families and men do leave, for me, obviously, people have their reasons. There's two sides of the story, but I think that's the easy way out. I think it's a lot more tougher and a lot more harder to actually be committed and say, no matter what we're going through, the ups and downs, the trials, whatever, I'm going to commit myself to this family. And I think that's what makes a man, because you're not thinking of, like for me now, if God forbid I was to split up with my wife, it would be easy for me, financially. I wouldn't have that burden of providing time-wise. I'll have time back. But no, I think it's a sacrificial thing, and that's what Jesus exemplifies in the Bible. Even when he was on the cross, he was sacrificing his life. And as men, we're there to be sacrificial lambs to our family, because ultimately it's not really about us. We have our own children. It's about them. God says to love your wife as Christ loves the church. So if I'm going to love my wife, I need to sacrifice what I want to do for her, for my family, and for my grandchildren. But I'm not gonna carry on.
No.
For myself going on. But
anything you need to say, I think this is the time that we need to hear it. But I'll follow up that question with, that's what a man of God is. I want to talk about the difference between a godly man and other men, and I'll take this one first, then. I
was going to say take it first because I haven't got any notes for this. So you take it first.
We'll vibe off each other. So for me, I think ultimately what makes a godly man, the difference between a godly man and just a regular man, is that a godly man firstly knows the bigger picture, sees the bigger picture, and ultimately sees what the true bigger picture is. Because we can all say, oh, we see the big picture, but as a believer, I believe that the Bible is the truth, is the way, the truth, the life through Jesus Christ, and to see that picture is going to shape how you lead your life as a man. And that leads on to then the next bit, which is a godly man knows himself and knows his role. And I think identity is key. And I think that's a lot of times why as men we sort of get lost along the way, is that we're good at being actors, or we're good at trying to portray what we think a man is. But until you know who you really are, who you truly are, you're not going to be it. You're not going to be what a real man is, because I think being a real man is going to cause you to do things that are counterintuitive a lot of the time. Like you're saying, the easy way out sometimes, like, is just, wow, yeah, this relationship's hard, or man, like raising my kids is hard, or forget that, getting up every day and going to work I don't want to do this job, or I know it's the right thing to say, but I just can't be bothered to say it. It's all hard, and that's the easy way out, is just to not do those things. But once you know yourself and you know the role you're playing,
That's it.
then you know the direction you're meant to go, and that's what makes a godly man. And I think without this, you're directionless. I think ultimately, no matter how you can try and portray to the world that you've got it all together and you've got it all going on, if you don't understand there's a bigger picture to this world than you're gonna not have any direction. So
I think sorry to cut, I think you hit the nail.
Cool. I'm just gonna keep talking. I'm gonna turn the fan off.
Yeah, I think I'll turn to the camera. I think Joel hit the nail on the head with that one. I think as men and just as believers in general, we need to have our identity rooted in Christ. So my whole philosophy, my whole outlook of life is from the Bible. That's why I love, to some extent, preaching or teaching or talking about God so much, because you know me quite well. I like to brag and boast sometimes, if I win certain things, just a bit. But one thing that I can brag about without a question is the Bible, because it's the word of God. It's not my words, it's His word. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think, as men, there's so much stereotypes and so much distractions thrown at us in the media, social media, in the world, of what a man should be. And you can get this, I think, overwhelmed with it. But you need to, especially in this day and age, we need to know who we are in Christ, and that's where our identity should be. It should be in the Word of God, not for what He says, not what she says, not what anyone says. It needs to be in the Word of God.
Yeah.
So I agree with what you're saying. Yeah.
And like you say, it keeps you grounded.
Yeah.
And it gives that stability that I think everyone needs. I'm gonna sort of ask a question that is gonna go slightly back to my first one, which is, when did you become a man? And you said when you became a man, it just sort of kind of happened, type thing. But why do you think it wasn't obvious when you became a man? Or kind of, when did you get to that point where you did think it's obvious now?
Yeah, I've got here that I don't think, first of all, in my opinion, I think in order to be a man, I don't think you can be a man without responsibility.
Right.
I think you need to be responsible for something in order to be a man. Again, going back to the scripture, when I was a child, I thought I was a child. When I became a man, I put away childish things. So why are you putting away childish things? It's because you're not a child no more. You've got things to take care of. You have responsibility. You've got bills to pay. You have people to provide for. So I think, so for me, it's been a process. So, parents split up at young age. Then it was like, okay, cool, I have to kind of step up financially to help around the house, to do this, do that. I got married at 23. We moved out some time after we got married. And suddenly we had rent to pay, had our own bills to pay, council tax, whatever. I think it's been a gradual thing. And now, being a father to two sons, I've got two sons who are going to be my age one day and are going to be asking me questions one day. And even with the whole COVID-19 thing, my wife is no longer working. So it's like I have responsibility now, I'm literally man of that. I have to provide for my family, for my children. I think, I think the responsibility that comes with age, that comes with time, you can either run away from it, like Adam, or you can embrace it, and I think responsibility and pressure is good. You've got the saying, pressure builds diamonds, cliche, but
it's true. It's a good
that's
phrase.
The thing. I think you need that responsibility to, in my opinion, to be a man. If I was at home playing Xbox all day, what kind of man am I? What am I doing in my life?
Yeah.
So man, I think it's something that happens over time. Something that comes of age.
Yeah. No, I hear you. And ultimately, I think there's so much in life that's inevitable. I think, and this isn't just being a man, but I think it does link with it, is that our tendency is to just want to shy away from any pressure, struggles, trouble, anything that is not going to be pleasing to us. And ultimately, on the surface, it makes sense. But I think where we get stuck is when we think we can create a life that avoids it. And it's not going to happen. These things will come your way. And I think if we're speaking about men, what makes the difference between a man and a boy or a man and a real man is the one that's willing to just embrace it and deal with it as it comes. Not bury his head in the sand and pretend that it's not going to work, or think, God, why me? Like, why is this life so hard? Because the sad truth is, life is hard for all of us, and even the people that you think are sailing through life, no doubt having troubles as well. But I think a real man will take responsibility for the pressures that come. And I think for myself, when was it obvious I became a man? I don't think it was. I think it came in stages, and I like the way you summed it up actually, is that the more responsibilities that come, the more you sort of realise. And I know definitely for me being married now, that's, I would say, been my confirmation of I'm a man. And it's not that I learned everything by being married. I'm learning a lot and it's fine tuning a lot, but it's also confirming that God, thank you, because there was a lot that you already developed to me. I was a man before I even met my wife, and now you've confirmed it to me. Big part of Eddie's story that really spoke to me on a personal level is when he was talking about when his wife was in hospital. People out there might know that there was a similar situation I went through with my wife pretty much this time last year, and she'd been ill for a long time, pretty much the whole year, and got hospitalised for a couple of weeks. And that was another example in my life where I thought, I have to be a man in this situation. And coming through it has almost confirmed it, because it like Eddie was kind of touching on, it's not just the pressure of, oh, she's ill. Like, you got to deal with your emotion in that. And I remember thinking, like, how am I going to pay the bills? I've got to make sure we get the house, like, we don't lose it. She's earning, and I would go visit her in hospital, and she was like in so much pain, and to see that, but know that you still got to try and be the stability for her, having arguments with doctors and all that. But I remember the big deal for me, and it was kind of two things. Is one is not having that mindset of why me, or like, why is this life so exactly, just thinking this is what it is, and my wife needs me right now, and this is my time to step up. But that's what I also think is the beauty of when I'm talking as a married man, you find a good wife. Because I remember my worries outside of her health, about the money and the house and all that, I wasn't worried for myself. I've lived through harder times than that and come through it. But I was thinking, I can't bring my wife through these times. I can't expect her to go through it the way I went through it. And I was adding so much pressure and stress to the situation. And then when she just said one day, like, Joe, I don't care what happens, and I trust you doing the right thing. And it's cool. And to know that you're enough, do you know what I mean? I think that is, it's a nice sort of cycle, because it makes you have the confidence to be a man, and then it confirms that you're a man at the same time, when you can offer that to someone who depends on you. When you can offer them that security to say, I trust you, you're doing what's right by being a man. And then that feeds into you thinking, I really want to be a man. Final question I want to ask you then is about role models and who we sort of looked up to. And it's a two-part question, which is, who are the men you looked up to when you were a kid? And are they different to the men that you look up to now?
Sure. Just a heads up, I do have the questions you asked here. What I will say, the men who I looked up to when I was a kid, and who I look up to now, I would say one figure who's been a key role model in my life has definitely been Bishop Wayne Malcolm. So before we moved to Ashford a long time ago, I was brought up in the church, and he just shaped my whole thinking from a young boy to a teenager to a man. I grew up in the church, and every Sunday, I would literally listen to his word, and I started hanging around with his sons from a teenager. And I managed to get his number, and I would just literally bombard him with calls after calls after calls, so much so that he eventually called me back. And the next thing you know, I think he kind of took me on under his as his apprentice. So I'd go to shows with him where he would speak and just be around him. He was my mentor actually for quite a few years. He was definitely a key figure, key role model in my life. Another one is Dr. Miles Monroe, the late Dr. Miles Monroe. He's a Bahamian pastor he's now dead. But yeah, just look at him on YouTube. I look at one of his good sermons is actually why men need visions and dreams. So look at that on YouTube. That's a must watch for men and women as well.
So why men need vision and dreams.
Yeah, I've watched that at least 10 times. And TD Jakes as well, I would say. And also, just bringing it home, I would say Pastor David as well. Pastor David has always...
big shout out to PD.
Yeah, Pastor David, he's always made room for me. We actually, the last time we met, I think was maybe 6 weeks ago, 7 weeks ago. But throughout the years, Pastor David has always been, took time to make room for me. We've always had good conversations. He's always given me advice. He's always kind of seen something in me which I hadn't seen in myself. Pastor David as well. He's always been a good role model for me. What about yourself?
Mine's changed. Definitely as a kid, I would say the role models I had, they had qualities that I'm not so interested in. I don't think it's the be all and end all. So when I was younger, it was, being a guy that was good with girls, like physically strong and powerful, deep voice.
That's why I got a tight top and the muscles.
I'm still, God's got work to be done. No, in all seriousness, but like these like big, like strong guys or good with women, respected but bordering on the side of
gangsters,
feared.
Godfather.
Do you know what I mean?
Scarface. Al Pacino.
Yeah. And it was that kind of everyone respects them but kind of fears them. Almost thankfully I didn't go too as much as I rated them guys. Thank God I didn't go too far down it. I never lived a life I don't think that was trying to be feared. But I respected people like that.
I think we all go down that phase actually. I remember when we went through that phase, and I don't know if you remember, but we would look at videos of how to be an alpha male, how to carry yourself, and the man who holds the door first or puts his arm here, and we had that little thing.
Funny story when I first came to Ashford. I remember when we first met, and I would go out and just normal behaviour. Sometimes I'd just open the door because I was the last one out, and he would refuse to go through. He'd be like, nah, the man's got to go through that. But definitely it was, and I think there's some good qualities that come from that, like chivalry and whatnot. But this idea of just being strong and powerful and stuff like that, I think it's not the be all and end all, because ultimately what I really respect now in men is just a man who knows his identity, knows his identity and is willing to live it out through the good and the bad times. And then all the rest is irrelevant. Like you could be a 5'0", short guy with a soft-spoken voice who's single with no kids, and you could still be a real man that I respect compared to someone else who might have all the physical attributes and everyone respects him and fears him and whatnot, but I would just think, but it's all fake, or what are you doing with your life? And so I think it's so much more than these physical outward things, these outward appearances that we put out there.
The prophet, he said when he was looking for the new king of Israel, he said, Jesse showed all of his sons apart from David. And he said, you're missing someone. And he said, a man looks at the outward appearance, but God looks at the heart.
Exactly.
And I think so much times, a lot of time he spends, time, getting our biceps, right? No, I'm hating on Joe because I need to go gym. But I think we spend a lot of our time going gym, making sure, our body is this and that, which is great. We need to look after our body. Our body's a living temple, but we also, our body is flesh. Our body's going to decay.
It shouldn't be the focus.
That's it. If we're spending X amount of time on the body, we need to be spending more time in the Word. As I'm saying that, I'm convicted myself because I need to spend more time in His Word as well. So
trust me. But even that, and I think that's a real good point to finish this section on, is we're never going to say that we know all the answers or anything like that. And even like relatively speaking, we're young guys, so that would be sort of condescending of me to be talking like I know everything and that we know. But I don't think you have to be 80 years old and lived a solid life to know what being a man is. And I think that's the beauty of knowing God and knowing Jesus. He gives you the blueprint.
That's it.
And that's, even as believers, what we've got to be careful of is situations like this. I think we know what's right, and God's Spirit tells us what's right. And even as believers, we can make excuses like, but yeah, but when I'm a husband, then I'll do
This
that
happened.
thing.
Yeah.
Or when I'm a dad, then I'll do that. Or, all right, when I'm 50, then I'll do. No excuses. Like you said, David was told he was going to be the king from a child, like a young boy who had like ultimately none of the attributes, but ultimately lived his life in such a way that gave him the qualities needed to lead. So you're never too young, too old, too anything
All perfect.
to not be a great man. And
Yeah.
ultimately it comes from God.
And just on the subject of that, if I'm talking too much, tell me. I saw a
Of course
comment on YouTube today, and they were talking about men, and one of the comments said that people forget that David's, was to some extent he was lustful for women. He had a woman killed, had a man killed, so he could to cover up his sin. He done all these bad things, but it said at the end of the day, David was a man after God's own heart. And I think that's the key thing. Where is your heart? It says where your heart is, that's where your treasure will be also. And if I can ask you a question, if you don't mind.
No, of course.
One of the questions you had was, why does the world need men? So if I put
Yeah,
it to you,
good question. Good question.
You can answer that question.
There's no notes. There's not scripted this one, but I would say the world needs men for some practical reasons, and I think one of them that jumps out to me is I truly believe that men create stability. Stability wherever they go. A real man, and I think in a world that is so full of chaos and craziness, that's what we need. And I think whether you like it or not, ultimately men are looked up to be leaders in situations, whether that's in society, whether that's in your home, whether that's by your kids, or I mean, we've done youth work, and so we know that the youth would look up to. I think there's just something about being a man that people want to look up to. There's a lot of men that people don't look up to, but I don't think that shows that men aren't looked up to. I think it's just because you're not showing the qualities of a real man. And I think when you live it out, it creates them stable environments that help people to feel safe, if you know what I mean. And I'll flip it back on you,
Joe knows me way too well. He knows me too well.
Why do you think the world needs? Why does the world need men? And it's a good question because I think there's a lot these days of like anti-men, and
there is.
As much as I disagree, I don't want to be extinct from this.
Trust me.
I actually understand it, and like we've grown up in we were around a lot of single mums, and I get it. I truly get why particularly women could end up in situations of thinking, I hate men.
I don't need a man.
But why do you think? Why do people need us?
Well, before I even answer that, a man needs to be needed. I don't know if a man actually, to be a man, he needs to be needed. But on that question, why does the world need men? Well, I mean, I think that the world is made up of nations. Nations are made up of communities, and communities are made up of families. And the male, is that foundation of the family. And I think when God made Adam, he was very intentional. I mean, I think a lot of times as well, as men, we know the saying, I'm the man of the household. Man is the head of the household. But I think we can often get that misconstrued, because what that actually means is that we're not the head, so I tell you to do this, you do that, go here, go there, you listen to me. We're actually the bottom. We're actually the foundation of the family. And like any good contractor, any good builder, when you're building a new building, you start at the bottom, you start the foundation.
The foundation.
And if you don't have the foundation right, then everything else is going to crumble. So I think men. The world needs men, but the world needs good men. It needs God-fearing men.
And there's a difference, a big difference.
A big difference. Men who know who they are, men who know why they're called. And I think that is something that does happen over time. You're not just going to have an epiphany and this is my journey. That comes through being in relationship with God. But I think men are the pillars of society. We come from broken families. We know what that does. And you need a good role model. Like you said, we've done youth work. Well, we see the boys on the street. We see the guys who want to be drug dealers, want to be gangsters, who are on the roads. And we see them. They need those good role models. I'm not saying by all means I need those guys. But having being mentored by Pastor David and Bishop Malcolm, and having good people in my life and good Christian men in my life, I know the impact that has on them. We can either go this way or go that way, and you need good people.
I agree
100%.
completely. And like you said, it's not that we're saying we are the standard of perfection or whatnot, but if you know who you are in God and you know that you are striving to be a good man and God is helping you to have them qualities, we need to shine that light, because it's not just about us. There's like you said, and we've seen it through the work we do, the people we know, there's so many like broken boys looking up to broken men.
That's it.
Who would then become broken men, leading the next generation of broken boys. And at some point, we have to break that cycle.
That's it.
Because you're just going to have generations upon generations of brokenness. And the good, and as a good man, sometimes I think it's tempting to just want to shut up shop and keep your little safe environment that no one can touch. But I think we're called to bigger things than just our small household or circle.
A light on the hill cannot be hidden.
Amen. Amen.
On that note.
Preaching. That's a that is the end of this question part, and I hope that's been an enlightening section for everyone. And I just want to finish on a final sort of few questions. Now, I put out the questions to the girls in the team, so Jade, Charlotte, Canel and Tanya, because I wanted to get a female perspective as well in terms of what are some questions that they would want to know from us guys. So I've got their questions through here, and again, we'll give as honest opinion as we can, and hopefully this is going to be a blessed session. And thank you for everyone that is still tuned in with us. We've still got 16 live, potentially more going strong. Thank you, soldiers out there. First question, and this was from Jade, and her question is,
what's he saying?
Do you want to take this first or me before I ask it?
I'll go on.
You go first. So Jade's question was, what does giving security mean?
Ooh, Jade, security. Wow.
Straight in with that one.
Yeah, boy, geez, how long we got? Yeah, I mean, I think that is in a man. It's in a man's nature to provide, to want to provide for his family. I've been on both sides of that. I know one time when I couldn't provide, boy, as you know as well, those times are tough, man. It's not nice, because as a man, you want to provide for your family. It's in your nature. That's how we're designed. So I think when a man can't do that, I know for me, when I couldn't do that, it wasn't a good place. But a man can't be who he's destined to be if he can't give, because it's in his nature to do that. It's a man's nature to provide, to want to give, to lead.
Cultivate and
to cultivate.
Yeah, create.
That's it. Yeah. Because in Genesis, it says God gave man. He told man to have dominion over the earth, and I think it wasn't to have dominion over people, but it was dominion over the earth, over his resources, over his family or whatever. So, I think security to a man. Well, I know for me, because I am now in a place where I can provide for my family, I don't, being on the side of it where I couldn't, I don't now blow a trumpet and say, I can do this, I can do that, because at the end of the day, that's what I should be doing. That's what I'm here to do. That's my duty as a man, to provide and to provide security. Whether that's, and it's not just financial, because I think money comes and goes. Sometimes you have income, sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
But it's not just financial security, which is what I've learned. It's also that emotional security and being the spiritual leader in your household as well.
Yeah.
It's not just financial. There's so many other things at play here where men, we have to take the lead. So I don't know if that's answering your question, Jade, or what does it mean? Yeah, what does giving security mean to a man? But yeah, for me, that's
no, definitely. And to be honest, what I will say is linked to it. It's the same thing, and I've kind of touched on it before in that I think giving security is creating a stable environment
I like that.
for the people that are in your... Come on.
I should have said that still.
I've always created a stable environment for the people that are in your circle, whether that's your household, your wife, kids, friends, people in your spheres of influence. It's creating stability, and I think it's being stable as a person, and not this is what I would class as being a boy, not using your power to abuse, which happens so many times, and you get horrific examples, but even silly things like, you know, like back in the day, like I don't know if maybe you was like decent guy, but where you just like text girls and you don't want to commit, and you're texting this girl, like it's just childish behaviour, and you know that people like you, but you boost your ego, and you're ultimately probably doing it because you're insecure and you need to feed your ego, but it's not creating stable environments to people that you care about or that needs you to be stable. And like you said, it's more than just money and things like that, because you could be a guy that's providing millions for your wife and kids, but if you're not mentally there, or maybe physically there when they need you or something, you haven't created a stable environment. And I think that's a trap guys can fall into, is that we focus maybe on the physical things.
Definitely.
Why are you always nagging me that I'm out? Can't you see I'm working 9 to 5 and this job, and I'm trying to provide? And like you said, and it's even biblical, like a man that can't provide God doesn't have good things to say, but ultimately we're not in control of everything in this world. I think God knows your heart and your intentions. If you know in your heart, I've done what I can to provide, and you're not getting your breaks, I would not say you're not a man. Of course, I'd never say that. But if you're just lazing around all day, you're trying to like borrow money off your girl and all that because you don't want to work, I'll just say it as it is. I don't think you're being a real man, in my opinion. And I think that's what a real giving security is creating that stable environment.
I would agree.
Next question, and I'm happy to take this one first, is this was from Tanya. So Tanya was saying, what myths did we believe about men growing up, or what it is to be a man growing up, and how did we learn otherwise? And again, I think I've touched on it a bit, but I think one thing that I did think a man was I thought you couldn't get things wrong. That's what I thought. I thought as a man, you can't get things wrong. And I knew the reality that you get things wrong, but I thought other people can't know that about you, especially if they've expected something of you. Like, I can't be seen to have messed this up or got this wrong. And that is a myth. And ultimately, I would say, how did I learn otherwise? It's number one, reading God's word and trusting it, and knowing that I have to trust God, I can't rely on my own strength. And then studying other men, good and bad men. And again, behind the scenes, again, not trying to say we're great, but we try and put in a lot of work, I know, to build each other up and be good men. And we study, like, we want to be this as men. You can't just be a thought. You've got to think, well, then who's showing it? Who can I look to? Who can I mimic? And a lot of times they're going to do things that are counterintuitive. They're not going to be things that you think you should do, but you just know, well, they're doing the right thing and they're getting good fruits. So copy them and study bad men. Study people that you don't want to be like. And you need to do both, because, and I'll say this from the point of view of people I know that are coming particularly from broken homes, that typical narrative of, I will never be like X. A lot of times you hear, I'll never be like my dad. And then what happens? 10, 20 years later, he becomes like his dad. Because you're not aiming for anything. You're just trying to say, I'm not going to be like something, but you're not aiming to go anywhere yourself. So you need to know both. You need to know what you're trying to avoid, but you need to know where you're trying to head. I believe you only get that from God's word. But then as men, you have to trust it as well. Over to you then. So what myths did you believe about men growing up, and how did you learn otherwise?
If I'm honest, I agree with what you said. I think you have to be very intentional. And going back to what you said, I think there's a proverb where it says, a wise man learns from his brother's mistakes. In terms of myths, looking back at my childhood, actually, I had thank God for my parents. I had a praying grandmother, and my mum from a very young age always instilled in me good values. Do this, don't do that. So even before I hit puberty, before I was interested in girls, when I was like 8, 9, 10, my mum was telling me about girls. So when it came to secondary school, and I had all my friends sleeping around saying, do this, I've slept with this and that, I knew deep down that weren't the ways to go. And I think an example of that is my wife. Me and my wife, we started dating when we were in school, when I was 17 years old. So even from a young age, I always knew that when I found Tisha, I knew what my intentions with her, and I knew what they were. So yeah, myths of being a man. I wouldn't say I've had a problem with that, but one quote does come to mind, which is from the Godfather, when he says, "A real man, no, you're not a real man if you don't take care of the family." And I think I've always had family at the centre of my life from a young age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great question. So, thanks Jade, thanks Tanya. We've got 2 more questions. I'm going to ask a favour really quick because our TV that we're using to see what's going on just cut for a second. So I'm pretty sure we're still live. But if we are, can someone just drop us a comment? Just let us know that we're still live.
Drop us that fire emoji.
So I know that we're not just speaking into emptiness.
Yeah.
Third question, and I'm going to get you to answer that first, Nathaniel. What are the biggest, or some of the biggest struggles that you think men have, particularly Christian men? Tish, thank you.
Wife.
So yeah, what are some of the struggles you think Christian men can go through, particularly Christian men? And this was from Canal.
Jeez, that's Christian men. Wow. Boy, struggles that Christian men go through. I don't know. Well, I do know, but I don't know if I'm even aware. I think because you and I have our friendship, I can always come to you with anything I'm feeling, and vice versa. But I know, and you'd always give me that godly advice, and vice versa. I know that if I were to talk to my non-Christian friends,
it might get a different perspective.
It would be a complete different story. It's like when we went on our lads' holiday. It was with all Christian guys, which was fine. If it was with my non-Christian friends, it would have been a complete different story. So I think. What was the question again, please?
So what are some of the bigger struggles you think men go through? But I wanted to know, particularly maybe as Christian men, is it different? Yeah,
I think the struggle, I would say maybe, is trying to figure everything out ourselves and trying to do things alone. And maybe sometimes being too spiritual. I know that I've been a victim of that in the past. It says you can pray for this or pray for that, but it says faith without works are dead. Yeah. So for me, you can ask God for this, but you need to be putting the work in as well. What about yourself?
Yeah. So again, I'm gonna just keep double checking my notes because I really don't want to miss anything out. But I think for me, it's a similar concept, and I'll call it, and we've heard of this, we spoke about this before, like the Superman complex, like trying to be the superhero and the saviour in every situation. And I would maybe say that I think it affects all men. I can't speak for kind of men that aren't Christian now as a Christian myself, but I can feel how that affects you as a Christian because it sets you on a path to want to be a better man. And then I think if you're not careful, it makes you think, well, I have to be perfect. Like we keep trying to say, no one is going to be perfect as a man. We only strive for it. And I think it's Miles Monroe, I think it says that, oftentimes as men, we want to show Superman. Yeah. But what people really need to see is Clark Kent.
Especially the wives.
Definitely
the wife has to see the Clark Kent.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And Eddie said it in his video. Something that he learned was speak to your spouse. And I think this principle is relevant to unmarried men too. But we're married men, so it's definitely tempting to just want to be Superman and solve all her problems and protect her, shield her from this world. And almost like you never want her to know that you're secretly Clark Kent who can become Superman. Yeah. You want her to think you're always Superman 24/7.
But the strange thing which I found over the years is that when you show them Clark Kent,
it's a game changer.
They love you even more.
Yeah.
It baffles me. It baffles me.
I'm saying counterintuitive to so many things.
So I'll show my wife the weakness, and she loves me 10 times more. She's cooking me even more food than before, and it's crazy. It's
so true, and that's the thing, and I think you need to know that. But I think men out there, this is one of my encouragements to you, is know that through God, you are Superman. You can be that guy because. I'll just be real. I don't think my wife don't want me to be Clark Kent all the time, 24/7 at the same thing. She wants to know that my husband can be Superman, but be real. You're not Superman all the time, and it's okay to show your weakness. I would say don't dwell in it,
No.
but it's okay
Yeah.
to show your weakness. So I think that's a struggle, and I think the issues that come with that is then we take on more than we can handle.
Mm-hmm.
We
Yeah.
pretend that we're cool,
That's true.
and then we lie to cover it up.
Mm.
And then we create more problems
Mhm.
that then give us too much more we can handle.
Mm.
Then we have to lie even more to cover it up, and then you can end up in madness. So yeah, that was what I'd say is a struggle, but I think there's a solution which is ultimately grounded in God's word. But if I had to give a metaphor,
Yeah.
yeah, you're Superman and Clark Kent, and it's okay to be both people.
That's it.
Now, we've got one final question
That's it.
for the evening, and
Mm.
I love this question. This one came in from Charlotte, and Charlotte was asking something I never thought about, which is
Yeah.
why do guys tend to have smaller circles or support networks than women?
That's a good question. Great question.
And I'm going to give it to you first.
Yeah, boy. Jeez, I think for me personally, I've always been a very private person. Me and my wife, actually, I think that's how we've survived this long. We've always been private. We don't air out our business everywhere. And yeah, I think, as men in general, we don't like to show weakness. We don't like to show our Clark Kent, and we don't want to appear vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I know I don't. Especially when you are in a position where a lot of people look up to you and where people come to you for advice and this and that. When you're kind of in the spotlight, and I think men, we are very much aware of of our perception to others. Through social media and all this fake social media that we see these days. So I think we often try to give a facade of everything's great, everything's this, everything's that, but deep down men are quite lonely because who do men confide to? And I know that I don't even know the scripture, but I know that looking at David's and Jonathan's relationship, and I've spoken to you about this. They were like brothers. They would die for each other, and I think men have small, tight circles is because they just don't want to appear vulnerable. I know for me, I've had trust issues in the past. I've had good friends of mine who have hurt me. I've had a best friend of mine who passed away. So I think for me, and being the proud man that I am as well, I know we're called to be humble. I'm working on that. But being the proud man that I am as well, I think I don't really like personally, airing out my business to anyone. So I think as men, we're very selective of who we talk to, because when a man talks to a man or opens his heart to another man, that takes a lot to do.
Yeah,
that takes a
effort.
lot. And also men, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think women talk to women for friendship and men talk to men for advice. So I know if I'm speaking to Joel, I know I can call Joel anytime at night, be like, bro, this is happening, or I need your advice on this, or vice versa. And I think for me, I don't think men want to just, air out their dirty laundry to any Tom, Dick and Harry, because I think it's hard to find a good man these days who has the same values, the same morals as you. So yeah, I think that's why it is. I think men have a very tight circle because who can you trust, and you also want to just have that tight knit with somebody.
Yeah, I agree completely, and I think you've kind of nailed the points on the head. Is that it's hard to be vulnerable as a man, and I can never speak from the perspective of a woman, but just going off what I see, going off how my wife can be, and other women I know, is that for whatever reason it seems even harder for us to be vulnerable as men.
Yeah.
And like you said, to then open yourself up to someone. I think a lot of men will do it at some point in their life, but it only takes you to get burnt once.
That's it.
And you're thinking, never again, I'm going to do this life on my own. And I think we put on a facade. I mean, I know it's the same with you. Like, I think you can have a personality where people think they know you, but deep down, I'm showing you a certain side.
That's it.
But on the flip side, to answer that, and I think there's negatives that mean we have smaller circles. I do think that what I've seen is men tend to have tighter circles. The men that do have circles or support networks that are small, they're tight. And we mentioned it before the episode. We've mentioned it so many times amongst ourselves. I mean, we can go to each other about anything, and ultimately, there's not really too many other people in this world. We go to other people with other issues. Now, excluding our wives from the conversation, it's like when you find a friendship where you think, yeah, I can confide in this. This person's my brother. I don't know. I don't know if it's the same for women or it's different. But as a man, I just think I don't need much else. I'm happy to have social interactions with people and make friends, but I'm cool. It's a blessing. And if you've, again, keep going back to Eddie's video. Eddie, I think, mentioned you can count his close ones on a hand. And I think, if you've got that, if you've got like a handful of people you can call your close brothers, you're blessed. Very, very blessed. And I think that's the flip side. There's negative reasons why men have small circles. But with the ones of us that do have it, to be honest, we're not really striving to open it up too much.
Trust me, you stay over there.
So look, Nathaniel, that's the end of the grilling of the questions. It's been an amazing session. I know we've gone on for long, but I really pray that this has been a blessing for everyone watching, guys and girls, because I think there's so much that we can learn. I think there needs to be at least a part 2, and we get some other guys involved and we can discuss some other issues. And if there's other questions or themes around this topic that you would like discussed, drop them in the comments. Hit us up on Instagram or Facebook in the messages if you know us personally. Even just reach out to us and hit us up that way. And I just want to finish, Nathaniel, is there any like words of encouragement or takeaway points that you want to give to the people out there watching before we finish?
Yeah, man. Just, bro. I think life is a journey. That's what I'm learning. The Bible says that many are the plans of a man's heart, but the Lord will direct his steps. So we can make so many plans and have so many aspirations, but I think let's make sure that number one, we have to. I've said this before. We need to make room, make time for God, make continuous effort to be in His presence. And I think I'm speaking to myself here because I'm so busy. I know that I've been slacking in that department recently, but as men in particular, as the stewardships in our home, we need to continue being that foundation. I think the responsibility is it's not pressure, it's a privilege. Just keep doing you, and well done for making this fun.
Definitely. And again, particularly with this scenario we've got with lockdown and people being even more cut apart from people, this is an area where I think we've touched on men being quite private individuals, generally speaking. Now we're even more forced apart from people. So to all the guys out there watching, I'll say 2 things. If you are struggling and you feel on your own, reach out to your close ones, reach out to the leadership, like the pastoral team in your church, or with Bright City, reach out, or even to us. Like if you know us, if you've got our contact details, or hit us up on the messages. Like it's good to speak. And if you don't feel that you have that close network yet, I think start thinking, can I build sort of a solid network around me? But again, go back to the word, or go to the word if you've never been there in the first place, because that's where you're ultimately going to find your stability. And as much as I do encourage all you guys out there to reach out to people, I would also say ground it in what God says about you, because if you put sort of too much expectation on another person to be the one that can ease your burden, you might be setting both of yourselves up to fail. But definitely reach out. And all the men out there that are maybe thinking to yourself, do you know what, there's a guy that I've not checked in with for a while or whatever. Come on, let's not be passive men anymore. Let's not make excuses. Reach out to them. Just drop a text. See how you're doing. If there's someone you've not checked in with for a while, drop them a message. So we're going to end it there. I really appreciate each one of you for joining, whether that's been live, whether you're catching up at another date. I appreciate all the comments and interactions, and I'm going to end it on a video. So I reached out to a number of guys that I had on my contact list before this episode aired and whilst we were planning, and I asked them a simple question: what's your definition of a man? And I'm going to play this video for you now. And there's a number of men out there just giving their definition of what there is to be a man. And again, I really want to thank each one of you who were involved and sent me the clip. And for everyone watching, I just really pray that you can be blessed by the video too. So whilst I get that ready, I want to say thanks again for joining us. We will be back next week with Charlotte, I believe, doing the episode. And again, I pray that you have a blessed week, blessed weekend, and we'll catch you next week for episode 9.
Take care.
Yeah.
Peace.
A man, for me, is a giver. He needs to be able to give and provide for those that he loves and cares for. But also, for him to do that, he needs to be productive and fruitful.
What does it mean to be a man of God? Drive out demons, serpents, support his men and women of God, and to be there to do his will. That's being a man of God.
The definition of a man, in my opinion, is someone that is always ready to fight to protect his family, and also is someone that always looking for peace. He's a kind and loving person.
So my definition of a man, I don't think I know what it means to me yet. However, hopefully it's something that I discover soon.
To be a man is to be strong and bold like a lion. That means being able to try to handle any situation that comes your way. But not only just being strong, but also being humble and being prepared to say, when you got it wrong, not be afraid to say, I've got that wrong. Because I think that is important sometimes to be able to do that. So be strong like a lion, but also be humble enough to say, sorry, I've got that wrong.
What does it mean to be a man? That's a tough one. But I think in the world, it means being the alpha male, being the strongest and earning the most money. But in my world, it means looking after family and making sure everybody gets an equal chance.
So firstly, without sounding cliche, I think we can only find what it means to be a man with our relationship with God. I think sometimes we try to look for it in money, women, our job, our status, but ultimately I think once you find out what it means to be a man, it becomes about things which are intangible, things like doing what's right, taking responsibility, being vulnerable at the right times, but also being strong too. So there's a lot more to unpack, but I think our manliness, or what it means to a man, comes from looking at the example of Jesus, how he forgave, how he lived his life with integrity, with character, and it's how we treat others as well.
So my definition of a man is really complex and complicated. You can't just put it down into one phrase or one sentence, but one thing I would say is be an example of how you love, how you care for people, your spiritual walk, and how you handle situations.
Well, for me, to be a man, it means that you love your wife, you love God, you follow the rules, you are a good leader, you respect to the other people.
Definition of a man. Interesting question, Joel. I don't think you can go far wrong really if you follow the simple pattern in Micah 6, which advises from God himself that you be fair and just, be kind and be humble. And then I think if that happens, it follows then with Psalm 37, that your steps will be ordered by the Lord.
To be a man means that you got to handle your business. So you got to take care of your responsibility, whether that's your family, your work, the resources that you have available. You got to elevate them and build them up.
I think being a man is someone who's honest, someone who's loyal, someone who's dependable, and someone who's not afraid to show their real feelings.
To be a man, I think to be a man you need to show that you've come from a child all the way up to lead by God's example.
To be a man is to take responsibility for your life, both good and bad choices. It's to be humble, and it's to be in control of your emotions by depending on God.
What is a man?
So for me, I think about the qualities that make a man, in my mind, or definitely men that I've looked up to. So it'd be things like someone who's above reproach, someone who has integrity and is the same with everyone, and also someone that is willing to put aside their own desires or things they want to do to help other people. But equally, the role of a man in society, I think, is definitely changed. And I don't tend to see men and women as having certain specific roles, which I think is the right thing. But definitely in the home, I feel there's a role the man has to take.
My definition of a man is somebody who puts others' needs ahead of his own, but also doesn't live to please others.
My biblical definition of a man has always got to go to Joseph, husband to Mary and earthly father to Jesus. That man took responsibility. He did what God told him to do. He went when he was told to go, and he came back when he was told to come back, and he brought up Jesus in the way that he should go.
A real man creates stability, not chaos. A real man keeps his word, he owns up to his mistakes, and he never makes excuses for not doing what's the right thing. Knows that he was put on this earth by God for a purpose. So he has the confidence to live boldly, but the humility to know that he's part of something bigger than himself.
Wow, what a tough question. What is my definition of a man? Well, in a nutshell, maybe even in one word, committed. Someone who's committed to their families, to their spouse, to their friends, to bettering themselves, to bettering others. Someone who's committed to leading. Committed.
If I had to sum up what being a man is for me, it's taking responsibility, stepping up, doing what's required, being selfless, laying down your own preferences and comfort for others, for your wife, your children, your family. Yeah, that's what being a man is.